Hey, here's a question that sounds simple, but isn't. What actually causes cancer? For the last 70 years, the answer from most oncologists, textbooks, and pharmaceutical companies has been the same. Cancer is a genetic disease. Something goes wrong in your DNA, a mutation or a series of them, and a cell stops listening to the rules that normally keep growth in check. It grows when it shouldn't. It spreads when it shouldn't. Nearly the entire architecture of modern cancer treatment, chemotherapy, targeted therapy, much of immunotherapy is built around that idea. Find the mutation, hit the mutation. But there's a second explanation, actually older than the mutation theory, and it's having a series resurgence in research labs right now. It argues that cancer isn't primarily a disease of your genes at all. It's a disease of your metabolism, specifically of the mitochondria. Those are the tiny little power plants inside every one of your cells. And I've talked about this in my previous podcasts. If that theory is ever partly right, it opens up different questions about prevention and about what role metabolic health might play alongside, not instead of standard treatment. And this is one of the more genuinely interesting disagreements happening in cancer science right now. It's not settled and it's not simple. So today we're walking through where each theory came from, what the evidence shows, what's actually being tested in people right now, and most importantly, what it means for you, whether you're dealing with a diagnosis or just trying to build a body that's harder for disease to hold it in, or disease to take hold in. So let's get into it. Welcome to the Larsonelle podcast, where we bridge science, nutrition, and functional medicine to help you heal from the inside out. I'm Kim Larson. I'm a certified functional nutrition coach, Fast Like a Girl coach, and founder of Larson Nutrition and LarsonBotanicals.com. So, this is the show where we take the research that actually matters and translate it into something you can use in your real life without the hype and without pretending the science is more settled than it is. So, today's topic is one I've been sitting with for a while because it sits right at the intersection of everything we talk about here, metabolism, cellular energy, inflammation, and what we can actually do to move the needle on our long term health. So let's start with the theory that built modern oncology because it deserves to be represented fairly. It's not wrong, and I want to be clear about that before I introduce the counter argument. The somatic mutation theory has been the dominant framework in cancer biology since the 1970s. The core idea: cancer begins when DNA damage accumulates in a cell's nucleus from radiation, from environmental chemicals, from viruses, from random replication errors that happen just because cells divide until a critical mutation disables the genes that normally control cell division or repair DNA damage. And once that happens, the cell divides uncontrollably. Further mutations accumulate as the tumor grows and spreads. And this framework has driven enormous real progress. It's the reason we can now sequence a tumor's DNA and match patients to targeted drugs built specifically for their specific mutation. Immunotherapy, which trains your immune system to recognize the abnormalities on cancer cells that mutations create, has extended survival in cancers that were once nearly always fatal within months. Breast cancer, lung cancer, melanoma. The genetic model isn't wrong. Mutations are real, they matter, and treatments built around them save lives every day. So the question isn't whether the mutation theory is useful. It clearly is. The question is whether it's the whole story. And an increasing number of researchers think it isn't the whole story. Nearly a century ago, We're talking the 1920s. A German biochemist named Otto Warburg observed something strange. Cancer cells, and this is before he had all of the tools that we have today for research. Cancer cells generate energy differently than healthy cells do. And here's what normal cells do: in the presence of oxygen, they burn glucose through a highly efficient process called oxidative phosphorylation inside the mitochondria. It's the cell's premium fuel system. Cancer cells mostly don't do that. Even when oxygen is available, which it usually is, tumor cells rely heavily on a much less efficient pathway called fermentation or aerobic glycolysis. This is the process your muscles fall back on when you're sprinting and can't get oxygen fast enough. Cancer cells do it all the time, even when they don't have to. So Warburg believed this was the fundamental defect driving cancer, not a gene mutation, but a failure of the cell's energy machinery. And this came to be known as the Warburg effect. And here's what's striking: it's still observable in the vast majority of solid tumors today. It's so consistent and so pronounced that it's the basis of one of our most widely used cancer detection tools. A PET scan works by injecting you with radioactive glucose, sugar, and watching where your body absorbs it most aggressively. Tumors light up because they're consuming glucose at a rate healthy tissues don't match. Sugar, cancer loves sugar. So if you've been somebody who's eating sugar all your life, you're damaging your cells. This is from functional nutrition, functional doctors. Stop eating sugar. So the Warburg effect is real. The debate is about what it means. Seyfried's case, so metabolism first, mutation second. For most of the 20th century, mainstream oncology treated the Warburg effect as a downstream system, a byproduct of mutated genes reprogramming the cell's metabolism, not a cause. The mutations came first. They rewired the cell, and one of the consequences was the abnormal energy metabolism. Boston College biologist Thomas Seyfried has spent over 3 decades making the opposite argument. His case laid out across more than 150 peer-reviewed papers, and his book, Cancer as a Metabolic Disease, is that damaged mitochondria come first. When a cell's mitochondria can no longer perform normal respiration, the cell shifts to fermentation to survive. And the nuclear mutations researchers find in tumors. In Seyfried's model, there are downstream consequences of that mitochondrial dysfunction, not the root cause. Think about what that means. If he's right, then cancer isn't primarily a disease of bad genes that cells are born with or acquire through bad luck. It's a disease of broken cellular energy machinery that's influenced by things like chronic inflammation, metabolic dysfunction, blood sugar dysregulation, and the overall metabolic environment the cell lives in. Think about that in a family perspective, right? If your parents were eating Oreo cookies and cereal and sandwiches with, the bread that our parents ate or that we ate as children is not the same as the bread today. Same thing with a lot of the products on the shelves that are packaged. What they were when we were kids are not the same today. And so if that feeds the same habits of, in the toxic environment of using plastics and using the toxic perfumed laundry detergents and all the plugins that are toxic and all these things is causing problems. So I want to be direct about where this stands scientifically, because this conversation gets distorted a lot in both directions. Seyfried's metabolic theory is a real, published, peer-reviewed line of research. This is the most the best kind of research that is out there. It is not fringe science. It is not being ignored. It's being actively debated in serious journals and funded by serious institutions. But it remains a minority position at this time, not the scientific consensus. Most oncologists who are behind on this research and cancer biologists still regard genetic mutation as the primary driver. But a lot of these oncologists are not reading the research that is out there. And with metabolic reprogramming as an important secondary feature, the debate between the two camps is genuine and unresolved. And that's actually what makes it worth your attention. Building on the metabolic theory, Seyfried and colleagues developed what they call press pulse therapy. And I want to explain this carefully because it gets misrepresented constantly. The name comes from ecology. Populations decline fastest when a chronic background stress, the press, coincides with an added acute stress, the pulse. You push down steadily and then you hit. Applied to cancer, the press is typically a calorie restricted ketogenic diet. And here's the logic: cancer cells are heavily dependent on two fuels, glucose and glutamine. And they've largely lost the metabolic flexibility to burn other things efficiently. Healthy cells haven't. So if you drop blood glucose and raise ketones, which is what a ketogenic diet does, healthy cells adapt and thrive, while tumor cells, which can't make that switch as easily, get progressively more stressed. And the pulse is an added acute intervention layered on top of that chronic metabolic pressure. In research settings, that might be a glutamine blocking drug or hyperbaric oxygen therapy. And in actual clinical practice, the most common pulse is conventional chemotherapy or radiation added on top of the metabolic protocol of ketosis, not replaced by it. And that last sentence is the most important thing I'll say about press pulse. So I want to be crystal clear. Press pulse therapy, as Seyfried described it, is designed to work alongside standard treatment, not instead of it. His own published papers are explicit on this point. Preclinical work, meaning lab and animal studies in aggressive brain tumor models, has shown stronger tumor control when a calorie restricted ketogenic diet is combined with metabolism targeting drugs than either approach produces alone. And that's the scientific foundation for the human trials we're going to talk about in a moment. So we have the theory, we have the preclinical data. Now, the question I care about most: has anyone actually tested this in real people? And this is where a lot of health content quietly cheats. It describes an elegant theory, shows you a mouse study, and lets you assume the human evidence is right behind it. Usually it isn't. So let me tell you exactly where the human research stands, including what's genuinely encouraging and what we still don't know. Most of the serious human work on metabolic theory has focused on glioblastoma and an aggressive brain cancer. That's not random, and it's worth understanding why. First, the metabolic reason. Glioblastoma cells show the Warburg pattern very strongly. They're heavily dependent on glucose fermentation, which in theory makes them unusually vulnerable to a metabolic approach. Second, the harder reason, glioblastoma has a median survival of about 14 and a half months when the best standard treatment available, surgery, followed by radiation and chemotherapy. And when the standard outcome is that difficult, There's a stronger ethical case for testing new approaches alongside standard care, and patients are often more willing to participate in research that might offer something additional. In 2025, a team at Cedars-Sinai published a phrase, one trial in the journal Scientific Reports. They tested a 16-week strict ketogenic diet, a 3-to-1 ratio of fat to protein and carbohydrate combined in people with newly diagnosed glioblastoma, given alongside standard chemoradiation, not instead of it, alongside it. And I want to be precise about what phase 1 means because it's frequently misunderstood. Phase 1 asks, is this safe? Can people tolerate it? And can they actually stick to it? Phase 1 is not designed to prove that something works. That's what phase 2 and phase 3 are for. So when a completed phase 1 tells us this, it's feasible. People undergoing brain cancer treatment can follow a strict ketogenic protocol. It appears tolerable. That is a real and meaningful step forward. It is not proof of benefit, and anyone who tells you it is has skipped a chapter. Here's the part that I think genuinely moves this out of fringe territory, and I want you to hear this clearly. There's currently an active multi-center randomized phase 2 trial called Diet to Treat. It is comparing a ketogenic diet against standard dietary guidance in people with newly diagnosed glioblastoma, with everyone receiving standard of care chemoradiation underneath. And it is funded by the National Institutes of Health and registered on clinicaltrials.gov as NCT 057-08352 if you want to keep track of it. An NIH funded randomized trial across multiple medical centers is not what suppression looks like. This is the establishment testing the idea. And you will hear people outline describe metabolic approaches to cancer as ignored, suppressed, or deliberately buried by the medical establishment. And that framing is emotionally compelling and it sells a lot of supplements, but it doesn't match reality. And when the NIH funds a multi-center randomized trial, that idea is being taken seriously at the highest level of research funding in the country, which is exactly what should happen. A hypothesis was proposed, survived preclinical testing, cleared a phase 1 safety trial, and is now being tested properly. And that process is slow and frustrating if you need an answer today. But it's the only process that reliably separates what actually works from what just sounds like it should. So before we move on, I want to set honest expectations. 3 trials are testing diet as an addition to standard treatment. Even a strong positive result would not mean diet replaces chemotherapy or radiation. That question isn't being asked. The evidence is far concentrated in glioblastoma specifically. Metabolic vulnerability varies enormously by cancer type. A win in brain cancer does not automatically transfer to breast cancer, colon cancer, prostate cancer. The diet to treat trial may come back neutral. So plenty of promising phase 1 findings don't survive phase 2. So that's not a scandal. That's the scientific systems working as designed. But whichever way it lands, we'll know something real. And that is worth more than another decade of arguing about it on podcasts and in comment sections. So I want to pause here because everything we've talked about in this first half of the episode, blood sugar, metabolic dysfunction, mitochondrial health, chronic inflammation, is exactly the work we do every single day at larsonnutrition.com. Here's my honest position after coaching thousands of clients is no protocol, no diet, no supplement fixes a broken metabolic function. If your blood sugar is swinging Your insulin is quietly climbing. Your inflammation is running hot year after year. That is the environment your cells are living in. And the research we've just been discussing should just suggest that that environment matters. My own story is where this started for me. At 53, I went in for a routine checkup and found out I had gained 45 pounds, had high triglycerides, high blood pressure, prediabetes, all at once. And instead of accepting medications as my only option, I reversed all three conditions through targeted nutrition, no drugs. My husband became my first client. He lost 47 pounds and came off blood pressure medication in 4 months. That experience is what built LarsonNutrition.com. We've since helped over 3,000 clients reverse prediabetes, lower blood pressure, improve their metabolic markers through medical nutrition therapy, paired with real weekly accountability, weekly calls, weigh-ins, recipes, and someone in your corner when life gets hard. We also offer an own at-home metabolic test kit that measures the markers that actually matter: your fasting glucose, your HbA1c, your insulin levels, and inflammatory markers, so that you know exactly where you're starting from. And if you're ready to build the foundation underneath all of this, start with a free health assessment at LarsonNutrition.com. Okay, I've spent the last several segments treating the metabolic theory fairly and seriously because it deserves to be. But now I need to talk about what happens to this science when it leaves the research lab and enters the wellness internet, because it does not survive that journey intact. A few specific claims circulate constantly that go well beyond what the evidence supports. And they're worth naming directly because I hear them from clients and I hear them in comment sections. And I want you to have the tools to evaluate them. So here's what's true: cancer cells do use glucose preferentially and at a high rate. The Warburg effect is real. So if you are constantly eating sugar, you can expect to get cancer. Sugar is the number one addiction in America today, and it's growing worldwide. Obesity is a real problem for cancer. And not getting exercise, not moving to get the toxins out of your body, having all these toxins in your body from chemicals, the air plugins, the air fresheners, the perfumes, the perfumed laundry detergents, the all the toxins, the dust in your home that you don't clean up. So eliminating sugar from your diet does not starve a tumor out of existence. Healthy cells need glucose too, including your brain and your immune system. But with a ketogenic diet, your brain loves ketones, and so does your immune system. So you can replace your brain fuel with ketones and your immune system with ketones and get rid of the glucose. And tumors have been shown to adapt. They can increase their glutamine metabolism when glucose is restricted. So no diet alone has been shown to eliminate an existing tumor in humans. That's not opinion. That's the current state of the evidence. But lowering your glucose will definitely help. So no credible researcher in this space makes this claim. I want to be empathetic about that because this particular version of the theory costs lives. People have delayed or declined proven survival extending treatment because of a belief that dietary change alone could do the job. Every serious clinical protocol in this space, every one of them, pairs the metabolic approach with standard oncological care. That's not a concession to the establishment. That's because the researchers themselves believe you need both. And I do too. Metabolic vulnerability varies enormously between cancer types. And the Warburg effect is stronger in some tumors than others. The evidence for ketogenic diet is most developed in glioblastoma, and applying those findings to pancreatic cancer or ovarian cancer or prostate cancer is a leap the science has not yet made. And for someone in active treatment or sitting with a new diagnosis, hearing the oversimplified version of this, just cut sugar and starve it, can be genuinely dangerous. Not because the metabolic theory is wrong, but because the simplified version strips out all the nuance that makes it useful. Both camps in this debate are working with real data. Both have things right, and the truth, as it usually is in biology, is almost certainly more complicated than either extreme position. And the most credible reading of where the science stands today is something like this: cancer likely involves both genetic damage and metabolic dysfunction, feeding into each other. And a cell with mitochondrial problems accumulates more DNA damage. A cell with DNA damage may lose metabolic flexibility. And these processes are probably not sequential, they're probably intertwined. And untangling cause from effect may not even be the most useful question. So, what matters more for most of us is what we do with this. Metabolic approaches, including a therapeutic ketogenic diet, are a legitimate area of active research that is worth asking your oncology team about, not as a replacement for your treatment plan, but as a possible addition to it. And that conversation belongs in the clinic with the people who know your case, your cancer type, your treatment protocol, and your overall health. Now, if someone starts talking to you about ketoacidosis, they know nothing about fasting protocols or ketogenic diets. Now, fasting protocols also can help you heal your own body. It's amazing what fasting can do for your body. I'm a certified fasting coach, and there is Prolon, which is a 5-day mimic fasting, and that can help clean up your body. But a 3-day water fast with electrolytes is amazing. You can create your own stem cells. Your body goes through and it cleans out dying cells or cells that are going a little rogue. It's amazing what your body can do in a fasting state. And it's good for you to actually do a fasting state on a regular basis. Stop eating for 24 hours, stop eating for 36, 48, and go up to 72 hours. So if you need any help with how to do a true 3-day water fast, I usually do them at the end of summer and then after the holidays. So that if you want to learn more, just reach out to me and I can show you how to get this done to help clean out your body, create your own stem cells, and clean up any dead cells in your body. So, what the conversation should never look like is you're quietly starting an aggressive calorie restricted diet in the middle of chemotherapy because you read something online. Your body needs nutritional reserves to tolerate treatment, to heal from surgery, and to run an immune system. The researchers who are doing this work do it carefully, with supervision, with monitoring. They're not optional. Here's what I think about with metabolic theory actually offers most of us, and it's more useful than specific protocol. It's a shift in where you place your attention. If cancer is purely a genetic lottery, bad luck, bad genes, nothing to be done, then prevention feels passive. You get screened, you hope. But if the metabolic environment your cells live in plays a meaningful role in how they behave over decades, and the evidence suggests it plays some role, even if we don't know exactly how much, then how you eat, how you sleep, how you move, and how well you manage your blood sugar and inflammation are not just about your waistline. They're part of something larger. And you want to be careful here because this is precisely where health content over promises. So let me say it plainly. No diet prevents cancer. There is no food or supplement that guarantees you won't get a diagnosis. Good people who do everything right still get diagnosed, and this is not their fault. What we do know from well established research that isn't controversial at all is that metabolic dysfunction, insulin resistance, chronic inflammation, obesity, poorly controlled blood sugar is associated with higher risk of multiple cancers. That link doesn't require Seyfried to be right. It's already in the mainstream literature. So the practical direction for a healthy person doesn't require picking a side in the theoretical debate. Both theories point the same direction. Keep your blood sugar stable, not perfect, but stable. Protein and fiber at meals. Fewer dramatic spikes and crashes. Take inflammation seriously. Get proper sleep, movement, get walking. Avoid alcohol as much as possible. Avoid ultra processed foods that are full of chemicals and forever chemicals and plastics. These aren't glamorous, but they're the real levers that can help you and help your body to fight cancer. Know your actual numbers. Know what your fasting glucose is, what your HbA1c, what your fasting insulin, what your triglycerides, what your inflammatory markers. Most people have never seen their fasting insulin. It's one of the earliest warning signs we have. Keep doing your screenings. Metabolic health is not an alternative to a colonoscopy or a mammogram. It sits alongside them. The worst version of this conversation is someone so, confident in their diet that they skip the test that would have caught something early. So let's take a quick break, and I want to share something that fits this episode in a way that's close to my heart. Everything we talked about today is really about one thing underneath it all: building a body and a life where you're not quietly under assault from things you didn't know to question. That's why I'm so particular about what my clients put in their bodies. And if I'm honest, it's why I became equally particular about what goes on them. Larson Botanicals is my organic ingredient skincare and candle line, and it exists because I couldn't find products I trusted. No mystery ingredients, no synthetic fillers, no hoping the fragrance chemical list is shorter than it looks. Just clean, plant powered formulations made from organic botanicals, crafted to actually nourish your skin instead of burden it. I put on my barrier cream today. I put on my mineral sun care, right? Your skin is your largest organ. It absorbs what you put on it. Don't put all those perfume lotions from Bed Bath and Beyond. Don't buy that stuff from Walgreens with all the perfumes in it. Don't buy that shampoo that makes your hair full of fragrance. Perfume on your neck. Think about that. Here is your thyroid. Here's your drainage system, right? And you're putting perfume here, right? There you're just putting toxins right into your system. This is where you're supposed to be draining your system, not putting perfume on it. Perfume of the old days was amazing, but today it is filled with chemicals. So it absorbs when you put all this stuff on your skin, it absorbs in. This is your biggest organ. And in an episode where we're just spending 30 minutes talking about the cellular environment and what influences it, what you apply topically is part of that picture too. If you want skincare and candles you can actually feel good about, take a look at what we've built at larsonbotanicals.com. I absolutely love our citrus candle, and I love our lemongrass candle. I will burn that 16-ounce lemongrass candle. I'll put it in the basement, and it'll go all the way up to our third floor or second floor. Basement, first floor, second floor. It is so fragrant and smells so delicious and good, and it is all organic. Every ingredient is right there on the label. That's larsonbotanicals.com. I hide nothing. Everything is right there. It's on the website. You can see it all. Even the bug balm that I have is amazing. So let me put this all together. Two theories of cancer. One says it starts with a broken gene. The other says it starts with broken cellular energy. The honest answer is that both are probably right about something, and the most credible scientists on both sides know that. And what the mutation therapy built us is the treatments that are extending lives right now. Targeted therapy, immunotherapy, drugs that match a specific tumor's specific genetic fingerprint. That is real and it is foundation of cancer care. And what the metabolic theory is adding, a different set of questions about why cancer arises, what environment it thrives in, and whether metabolic interventions carefully used alongside standard treatment might improve outcomes. Questions that are now being asked in properly designed NIH funded human trials. For a healthy person, the takeaway is not a diet plan, it's a reframe. The metabolic environment your cells live in matters. Blood sugar stability, inflammation, getting good sleep. Own your sleep. Make sure you're on a regular schedule. Get up in the early morning, 7, 8, 9. Get outside. Get some sunshine on your face, before all the UVA, UVB damaging. But get that sunrise to make sure that you're getting the good wake up circadian rhythm for your body so that it helps you when you need to go to sleep at night. Even like maybe walk your dog, go for a walk after dinner before it's too dark or when it is dark, and then wash it for bed and go to bed at a reasonable hour so that you can get up at a reasonable hour and stay on a regular schedule. Your sleep will get much better. And get movement. Walk after every meal. Get up early and go for a workout or go for a workout after work. Whatever works for you when your time is, if it's at lunch hour, just get it in and lift weights, do some jump training, do some running in place or run or do jumping jacks, right? You've got to get that workout in. And these aren't just wellness talking, right, points. These are part of the biological context that every cell in your body responds to every day. And for anyone navigating an active diagnosis, this conversation about metabolic approaches belongs with your oncology team. Bring it to them. Ask the question. You deserve a real answer from people who know your specific situation, not a protocol from a podcast. And for everyone, keep your screenings. Eat in a way that keeps your metabolism working for you. Know your numbers. Go to your annual doctor visits. Go for your dental cleanings. That matters. Get your numbers checked and stay curious about the science, especially the parts that are still being figured out, because that's where the most interesting things happen. Nothing on this podcast is medical advice. This is education. Take it to your doctor, ask better questions. That's always been the whole point. And if today's episode was useful, please share it with someone who needs it. And if you have a question you'd like me to dig into, drop it in the comments or send it to me through larsonnutrition.com. I read them. I'm curious what you want to know. So please share. And I'm Kim Larson, and this has been the Larson Health Podcast. Stay curious, stay healthy, and I'll see you next time.